Mail her husband took the deal to escape debts, but fought to defend the widow and her legacy. Jace rode through the dusty plains of Red Mesa, the twin suns hanging low on the horizon. His boots rested lightly in the stirrups of his hoversteed, a mechanical horse built for rough terrain. The wind whipped his dark hair, and the faint hum of the engine beneath him reminded him he was far from Earth. He had left behind debts he could never repay, hoping this new deal would give him a fresh start. The mail-order husband contract had seemed simple at first. He would work for a widow, Leora, on her ranch. In return, she would pay off his debts and give him food and shelter until the work was done. No questions, no attachments, just a contract signed with a few words and a promise of payment. But as he approached the homestead, Jace felt a twist of unease. The land was vast, stretching for miles, dry and red, but beautiful in its own harsh way. Strange alien birds glided over the cliffs, their wings reflecting the light of the suns. The ranch itself sat at the base of a rocky plateau, small but sturdy, with solar panels glinting and a wind generator turning slowly in the distance. He dismounted and tightened the straps on his pack. The faint scent of smoke drifted toward him. Someone was cooking, and the smell reminded him of home. Not his home, Earth was gone to him now, but a home he could imagine having. The door of the main house opened slowly. A woman stepped out, tall and strong, her hair tied back in a practical braid. She wore a worn jacket and boots that had seen many seasons. Her eyes, sharp and careful, studied him as if she could read the debts he carried in his heart. "You must be Jace," she said, her voice steady. "I'm Leora." "Yes, ma'am," he replied, keeping his tone even. "I'm here for the contract." Leora nodded, her eyes flicking to the list of tasks she had prepared. "We work hard here. The land is tough, and there's more than just farming to worry about. You'll need to handle the livestock, repair fences, and watch the property at night. The desert isn't kind to strangers." "I can do that," Jace said. He hoped it was enough. Words alone would not protect him if the threats he had sensed were real. The first hours were quiet. Jace carried water to the animals, adjusted solar panels that had loosened in the wind, and repaired a fence with his hands and tools. Leora watched him from the porch, noting how quickly he learned to move in low gravity, how carefully he handled the alien livestock, creatures that were part horse, part insect, with glowing eyes and thick armored hides. At lunch, they ate in silence, breaking bread with dried fruit and roasted meat. Jace felt the tension between them, the unspoken rules of a contract that bound him to her but not yet to trust or friendship. "The land is yours, right?" Jace asked, breaking the quiet. "Yes," Leora said. "My husband died defending it. These plains, these cliffs, they're all I have left. I won't give them to anyone." Her words were firm, but there was a sadness beneath them, a quiet weight that Jace could understand. He nodded, saying nothing. Words could not fix grief. Actions could. As night fell, the first danger appeared. A group of figures moved on the far ridge, barely visible in the dim light. Shadows, but intentional shadows. Jace's eyes narrowed. He had heard rumors of claim jumpers, men and women who would take land or property by force if they thought no one could stop them. Leora noticed his attention. "Do you see them?" He nodded. "They're scouting, might be looking for a weak spot." She frowned. "We've had trouble before, but I hoped it wouldn't come so soon." "We'll be ready," Jace said. His fingers brushed the edge of his plasma pistol, a simple weapon but effective. He had hoped he would not need it. Hope was a luxury in Red Mesa. The night was tense. They lit lanterns and placed them around the perimeter of the farm. The livestock was secured, and Jace patrolled the edges with careful steps. The alien wind whispered against rocks and fences, carrying distant sounds of creatures and the faint hum of hover vehicles. Hours passed and the shadows did not move closer. Jace returned to the porch where Leora waited, wrapped in a blanket. The stars above were strange, bright, and clear, and he felt a strange sense of peace for the first time in months. "You're good at this," she said quietly. "I've survived worse," he replied, watching the horizon. "Out here you learn fast or you don't last." Her gaze softened slightly. "I guess you'll fit in, I just hope the land doesn't change you," he smiled faintly. "The land changes everyone. You just have to decide if it makes you stronger or bitter." The next morning brought more work and more surprises. Jace found that the farm was not just threatened by human greed. Alien wildlife roamed freely, some small and harmless, others dangerous. One creature, a large four-legged predator with metallic scales, tried to attack the livestock. Jace had to chase it off with a combination of a laser rope and quick thinking. Leora watched him again, noting his bravery. It was not a man who ran from danger, but one who faced it. Slowly, the walls between them began to thin. Trust was not given, it was earned, and Jace was earning it step by step. By midday, they repaired part of the damaged fence together. The rhythm of their work was almost comfortable, and Jace realized that he was starting to care, not just about the contract, but about the land and the people who lived on it. Suddenly, a messenger arrived, a small hovering drone carrying a warning from a neighboring ranch. The message was brief. "Varney's men are moving closer. Watch your land." Jace's stomach tightened. Varney's was a name spoken in fear across Red Mesa, a corporate magnate with soldiers and technology enough to claim anything he wanted. And now he had his eyes on Leora's farm. "We'll handle it," Jace said firmly. Leora's eyes met his, a mix of fear and hope. That night they sat by the fire planning. They fortified the barn, set traps along the edges, and mapped out escape routes. Jace taught Leora how to use a plasma rope and a compact blaster. She learned quickly, her hands steady, her mind sharp. "You've got the instincts of a cowboy," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. "Even if you came here to escape, you might be the only thing keeping this place alive." He looked at her, feeling a strange weight in his chest. He had come for money and safety, but now something else pulled him forward, something stronger than a contract. A sense of purpose and maybe, for the first time in a long time, belonging. The night passed with only the whisper of the wind and distant calls of alien predators. Jace lay awake, thinking about the dangers that were coming, the debts he had left behind, and the choice he had made to step into this world. The farm was more than property. It was life, struggle, and hope, and he had a role in protecting it. By dawn, he was ready. Jace mounted his hoversteed, looking over the plains that stretched endlessly. He did not know what the coming days would bring. He only knew that he could not run, not anymore. The deal that had seemed simple, work for a widow, get paid, escape debts, had changed. Now he was part of something larger, a farm to defend, a woman to protect, and a legacy to preserve. And Jace had never been more alive. The morning sun rose over Red Mesa, painting the plains in orange and gold. Jace and Leora were already outside, moving through the fields. The farm had survived the first night without serious trouble, but both knew danger was close. Varney's men were coming. Jace checked the perimeter, adjusting motion sensors and setting small traps along the outer fences. Leora worked with the farmhands to herd the alien livestock closer to safety. The creatures were skittish, their glowing eyes reflecting the suns as they moved. Jace had learned to predict their behavior, knowing when to guide them gently and when to stand firm. By mid-morning, a faint hum reached Jace's ears. He froze, scanning the horizon. A group of hover drones hovered above the distant cliffs, scouts sent by Varney's forces. They were small, but their presence meant trouble. "Looks like they're checking the land," Jace said quietly. Leora joined him, her eyes sharp. "They'll want us to sell," she said. "Or they'll take it by force." Jace's jaw tightened. "We don't sell, we fight if we have to." Her eyes met his, a flicker of trust and maybe hope shining in them. She had been cautious before, but Jace was proving that he was more than a man who worked for a paycheck. He was a protector. The next hours passed with tense activity. Jace and Leora moved from fence to fence, checking for weaknesses, reinforcing gates, and teaching the farmhands how to handle basic weapons. Jace had scavenged a few old plasma pistols from the supply shed, and even Leora learned to use one. It was strange to see her holding a weapon, her hands steady, her gaze determined. "You're quick to learn," Jace said, watching her adjust the aim of a laser rope trap. "I have to be," she replied. "This land isn't going to protect itself." A sudden crash echoed from the western edge of the property. A small group of alien scavengers had wandered into the field, curious and hungry. They were not dangerous, but their presence startled the livestock. Jace moved quickly, waving his arms and shouting, guiding the creatures back toward the barn. Leora joined him, using a whip-like energy cord to herd the animals. The creatures finally settled and the scavengers retreated, disappearing into the rocky hills. Jace wiped sweat from his brow and looked at Leora. "See, sometimes the fight isn't with men, it's with everything around you," she smiled faintly. "Everything wants to test us here." By afternoon, the horizon darkened with the approach of a larger threat. A squad of men, dressed in armor and carrying energy weapons, rode across the plains on hover bikes. Jace's pulse quickened. These were Varney's mercenaries. They were fast, well-equipped, and used to taking what they wanted. "Get everyone inside," Jace commanded. "Close the gates and stay quiet." Leora moved efficiently, calling the farmhands and securing the livestock in the barn. Jace mounted his hoversteed, heading toward the approaching threat. He had no intention of letting these men intimidate the widow or steal her land. The mercenaries stopped at the edge of the property, scanning the land. One of them raised a hand, and a loudspeaker crackled. "Leora Ven, your farm belongs to Varney's now. Sell it or we take it by force." Jace rode forward, stepping into the open, his plasma pistol ready. "This land isn't for sale," he said firmly. The mercenaries laughed. "Then you'll lose it anyway." The first shots rang out, energy pulses zipping across the dry air. Jace ducked, rolling behind a boulder. He returned fire carefully, aiming for the bikes and equipment rather than people. His goal was to protect, not to kill unnecessarily. Leora watched from the barn, her hands clenched in worry, but she trusted Jace. The skirmish lasted hours. Jace used every trick he knew. Plasma lassos to trip hoverbikes, energy nets to trap attackers, and clever maneuvers across the low-gravity plains. By sunset, the mercenaries were retreating, some wounded, most humiliated. They would be back, but Jace had bought time. When the dust settled, Leora came out to meet him. Her eyes were wide, a mix of fear and relief. You saved the farm." Jace shrugged, wiping dirt from his face. "We saved it together." She studied him, her expression softening. "I didn't think a hired man could care this much. You're different." "I've learned that some things are worth more than money," he said. That night they gathered around the fire again. The air was cooler now and the plains seemed quieter. Leora handed Jace a cup of warm tea and he sipped it gratefully. "You could leave tomorrow," she said quietly, "but you didn't. Why?" Jace looked at the stars. "I don't know if I've ever wanted to leave. Not when there's something to protect. Not when there's someone to protect." Leora's hand brushed his. It was a brief touch, but it carried trust and a hint of something deeper. Jace felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had come to Red Mesa to escape debt, but he had found something unexpected: purpose. The following days brought more challenges. Supplies were low, and the farm needed repairs. Jace and Leora worked side by side, reinforcing fences, clearing debris, and preparing for the inevitable return of Varney's men. Each task strengthened their bond, and each moment of quiet between work brought unspoken understanding. One afternoon, a strange glow appeared in the northern hills. A hovering ship, small but sleek, descended silently. From it came a figure in a dark suit, carrying a message. Jace approached cautiously. The figure handed over a data pad. Leora read it quickly. Her eyes widened. "Varney's, he's sending someone else, a bigger group. They're planning to take the farm in a week." Jace's fists clenched. "Then we prepare. We'll make sure they regret coming here." Over the next few days, Jace trained Leora and the farmhands in combat techniques suitable for the terrain. They learned to move silently, to use the land to their advantage, and to make improvised weapons from the tools they had. The alien livestock, too, were trained to respond to signals, helping as both alarm and distraction. During a quiet moment, Leora asked, "Do you ever think about going back?" Jace shook his head. "Going back isn't an option. This is real. This is worth fighting for." She nodded, understanding. The bond between them was growing stronger, shaped not by a contract, but by shared danger and shared hope. As the week progressed, the first signs of the incoming mercenaries appeared. Scouts were spotted on the cliffs, observing from a distance. Jay set traps and positioned defenses, working tirelessly from dawn to dusk. Leora joined him, her skills improving each day. Together, they moved like a team, anticipating attacks and preparing countermeasures. On the eve of the expected attack, Jace and Leora stood on the porch, looking over the plains. The twin suns had set, leaving a sky full of stars. Jace placed a hand on Leora's shoulder. "No matter what happens tomorrow," he said, "we face it together." Leora nodded, her eyes firm. "Together." And as the night deepened, both felt a quiet resolve. The farm was more than land. It was a life, a legacy, and a bond that had begun to grow between them. Jace's escape from debt had led him here, but he now realized that staying and defending the farm and the woman who ran it was the only way forward. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But for now, under the alien stars, they were ready. The morning sun rose pale over Red Mesa, casting long shadows across the farm. Jace and Leora were already moving through the fields, checking the defenses they had set up. The week had been tense, each day filled with training, repairs, and preparation. Now the real threat loomed closer. Jace mounted his hover steed, scanning the horizon. Dust stirred in the distance, faint but growing. Mercenaries were coming, larger in number than the previous scouting party. They had weapons, armor, and hover bikes, but Jace felt ready. Red Mesa was home ground, and he had learned every ridge, every rock, and every narrow pass. "We're outnumbered," Leora said quietly as she joined him. "But we know the land, that gives us an edge." Jace nodded. "Exactly, we use the terrain, we don't fight them where they want, we fight on our terms." The first clash came at mid-morning. A group of mercenaries tried to take the eastern gate, thinking it was the weakest point. Jace was ready. He launched a plasma lasso, wrapping it around one of the hoverbikes and sending the rider crashing into the sand. Others were caught in energy nets he had positioned days before. Leora moved among the farmhands, coordinating the defense. Her voice was calm but firm. "Move the livestock back, keep the gates closed, watch the cliffs." The alien animals, trained over the past week, reacted instinctively. Glowing eyes flashed as they moved, startling the attackers and buying precious seconds. A small creature, half horse, half reptile, charged, knocking a mercenary off his feet. Jace smiled grimly. "Good job, buddy," he muttered. The fight moved across the plains, each side testing the other. Jace used hit-and-run tactics, firing from cover, retreating, then striking again. He combined frontier skill with small, improvised sci-fi weapons, laser ropes, plasma pistols, and energy traps hidden among rocks. Hours passed. Dust and heat made it hard to breathe, but Jace never stopped moving. Leora fought alongside him when needed, her confidence growing. She wasn't just a widow anymore. She was a partner in defense, a leader who refused to be intimidated. By late afternoon, the mercenaries regrouped and tried to flank the farm from the northern cliffs. Jace noticed their movement from his perch on a ridge. "They're trying to get around us," he said to Leora. "Then we block them," she replied, determination in her voice. Together, they led a counterattack. Jace used a hover drone to distract the attackers, while Leora directed farmhands to ambush from behind rocks. The terrain worked in their favor. The mercenaries, unfamiliar with the alien land and the unpredictable wildlife, were disoriented. One mercenary tried to rush Leora, but Jace intercepted him, using a combination of physical skill and tech. He disarmed the man and sent him tumbling down the hill. Leora, watching, realized that Jace had changed. He was no longer a man running from debts. He was a protector, a hero, and someone she could rely on. The fight dragged into the evening. The suns dipped low and the sky turned a deep purple. Finally, the mercenaries, battered and demoralized, retreated. Jace and Leora watched as dust rose on the horizon, signaling their departure. Victory was theirs, but the cost was clear. Fences were damaged, some livestock injured, and the land bore the scars of battle. "We did it," Leora said, though her voice was tired. Jace shook his head. "We won this fight, but Varney's will be back, and next time he won't underestimate us." The night was quiet, but both knew it was temporary. Jace sat by the fire, tending to minor wounds and cleaning weapons. Leora joined him, carrying a small tray of food. They ate in silence, the weight of the day pressing on them. "You were amazing out there," Leora said softly. "I didn't think anyone could defend this farm like that." Jace looked at her, a small smile forming. "We did it together, you fought well too." She nodded, but her eyes were thoughtful. "I just hope the next attack isn't worse." Jace placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll be ready, and you're not alone anymore." Over the next few days, they repaired the fences and tended to the wounded animals. Jace taught Leora and the farmhands new strategies, preparing for Varney's inevitable return. They built hidden defenses, improved their weapons, and set up signals for early warning. The farm had become a fortress, and its people were ready to fight for their home. During a quiet moment, Leora approached Jace. "Why do you stay?" she asked. "You could leave any time." Jace looked at her, thinking of the week that had passed. "I came here to escape debt, but now this is more than that. This farm, this land, it's worth fighting for. I can't leave." Her eyes softened. "I'm glad. I didn't think a man could care this much, but you do." Jace smiled faintly. "Care is different from contract. I didn't sign up to protect you, but now I can't imagine not trying." As night fell, they walked through the fields, checking traps and watching over the livestock. The stars were bright, unfamiliar constellations glowing in the alien sky. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, as if the fight had been a test and they had passed. But the silence was broken the next morning. Smoke rose from the distant cliffs. Scouts had returned, bringing word that Varney's himself was moving to Red Mesa with a larger force. Jace and Leora knew this would be the biggest challenge yet. They gathered the farmhands and laid out the plan. Jace would lead a small strike team to intercept the first wave, while Leora coordinated the defenses at the ranch. The plan was risky, but their preparation and knowledge of the land gave them hope. When the sun rose, the attack began. Hoverbikes and armored troops descended on the plains, firing energy pulses at the farm. Jace moved quickly, taking the high ground, his plasma pistol firing with precision. Leora directed the defenders, her voice calm and commanding. The battle was fierce. Dust and smoke mixed with the alien winds, making it hard to see. Jace used every skill he had learned, combining cowboy tactics with futuristic technology. He swung from energy ropes, dodged pulses, and guided the farmhands to strike where the enemy was weakest. Leora fought beside him, using the land to her advantage. She had learned to anticipate movements, set traps, and protect her people. Her confidence was growing, and she no longer relied solely on Jace. Together, they were unstoppable. Hours passed, and the mercenaries began to falter. Jace led a final charge, breaking their formation and sending them retreating across the plains. The victory was hard-won but complete. Varney's forces had been defeated, at least for now. As the sun set, Jace and Leora stood together, looking over the damaged but defended farm. The fight had strengthened their bond, showing them that courage, trust, and teamwork could overcome even the greatest threats. Jace turned to Leora. "We did it." "Your farm is safe for now," Leora smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "Thanks to you and thanks to all of us, we fought for this land together." Jace nodded, feeling a sense of belonging he had never known. He had come to Red Mesa to escape debt, but he had found something more important: a home, a purpose, and a partnership with a woman who had become more than just a contract. That night, under the alien stars, Jace and Leora sat by the fire. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky filled with unfamiliar constellations. For the first time in his life, Jace felt at peace. He was not just surviving, he was protecting, fighting, and living for something meaningful. The threat of Varney's remained, but Jace knew that together they could face anything. Red Mesa was more than land. It was life, hope, and a legacy worth defending, and he would fight for it with everything he had. The next morning, Red Mesa was quiet, almost too quiet. Jace rode to the ridge, scanning the horizon. The air was still, and even the alien birds were silent. The calm felt like a warning. "Something's coming," Jace said as he returned to the ranch. Leora was already outside, checking the livestock and traps. "Then we face it," she said, her voice steady. "Together," Jace nodded. He had trained the farmhands, reinforced the fences, and mapped out every possible defensive strategy. Varney's was coming in full force, with enough men and equipment to take the farm if they weren't ready. By mid-morning, the first wave appeared. Hoverbikes and armored troops moved across the plains, their energy weapons glinting in the suns. At their head was a larger ship, a sleek black craft hovering silently, carrying Varney's himself. Jace and Leora took their positions. The farmhands were ready, the livestock trained to react as alarms and distractions, and the traps were set along the ridges. Jace looked at Leora, reading the determination in her eyes. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Always," she said. The attack began with a barrage of energy pulses. Jace dodged, firing back with precision. Leora directed the defenders, moving swiftly to protect weak points in the perimeter. The alien animals joined the fight, startling and disrupting the enemy's formation. Jace led a small strike team to intercept the first wave. He used the terrain to his advantage, moving between rocks, ridges, and cliffs. His plasma pistol fired in controlled bursts, taking out equipment and disabling hoverbikes. The enemy was skilled, but they were not familiar with Red Mesa. Leora stayed at the ranch, coordinating defenses. She gave commands to the farmhands, guiding them to push attackers into traps. She moved confidently, her voice calm, even as the battle raged around them. The fight was intense. Dust and smoke filled the air, mixing with the alien wind. Energy pulses lit the fields, shadows dancing across the terrain. Jace and Leora fought not just for survival, but for their home, their land, and the legacy of those who had come before them. Midday brought a dangerous moment. Varney's ship hovered above the farm, scanning for weak points. A small squad disembarked, moving directly toward the barn where the livestock and farmhands were concentrated. Jace saw them first. "Leora, Northern Gate!" he shouted. She acted quickly, directing defenders to hold the line and trigger the hidden traps. Energy nets rose from the ground, laser ropes swung from trees, and the alien animals charged. The mercenaries were caught off guard, stumbling over the traps and creatures. Jace led a daring charge, taking down several attackers with a combination of skill and quick thinking. He moved like a shadow across the plains, using cover, timing, and precision. Each move was calculated, each strike effective. Meanwhile, Leora faced her own challenge. One mercenary broke through the traps, moving toward the main house. She met him head-on, using a laser whip and quick reflexes to stop him. Her training and courage were evident. She was no longer the widow who needed protection. She was a fighter in her own right. Hours passed. The mercenaries regrouped several times, each attack more desperate than the last. But Jace, Leora, and the defenders held firm. They had learned to work as one, blending frontier skill with futuristic technology. Their teamwork, knowledge of the land, and determination gave them an edge. As the sun began to set, Jace noticed a pattern. The mercenaries were trying to flank from the east, likely to get to the energy crystals buried under the farm. He quickly devised a plan. Leora moved the livestock to the west pasture, set up traps along the eastern ridge. "I'll draw them in." She nodded, trusting his judgment. Together they executed the plan. Jace lured the enemy into a narrow pass lined with traps and ambush points. The mercenaries, expecting an easy advance, were caught in a deadly combination of energy nets, laser ropes, and surprise attacks. Varnes realized the battle was turning against him. He tried to take direct control, moving toward the farm personally in his armored suit. Jace and Leora anticipated him, meeting him near the ridge. "You won't take this land?" Jace shouted, his plasma pistol aimed steadily. Varnes sneered. "I always get what I want. You cannot stop me forever." "Not today," Leora said, stepping beside Jace, her weapon ready. The final confrontation was tense. Varnes fired a pulse cannon, but Jace rolled behind a boulder, returning fire with calculated bursts. Leora activated a trap that sent a net flying over the mercenary leader, slowing him down. Jace used the moment to disable Varnes' suit, short-circuiting its energy systems. Varnes fell to the ground, defeated but alive. His remaining forces, seeing their leader captured and trapped, surrendered or fled. The battle was over. Jace and Leora stood together, breathing heavily, surveying the damage. Fences were broken, the land scarred, but the farm was safe. The energy crystals remained under their control, and the legacy of the ranch survived. Leora looked at Jace, relief and gratitude shining in her eyes. "You saved everything," she said softly. "We saved everything," he corrected. "Together." The farmhands cheered, and the alien animals made their calls, celebrating in their own way. Red Mesa was quiet again, but this time it felt peaceful. The threat of Varnes had passed, at least for now, and the farm stood as a symbol of courage, determination, and teamwork. That night, Jace and Leora sat by the fire. The twin suns had set, leaving a sky filled with stars unfamiliar to Earth. The air was cool and the farm was calm. "I never thought I'd fight like this," Jace admitted. "I came here to escape debt, not to protect a farm or a family." "You did both," Leora said, "and more. You became part of this land." Jace looked at her, realizing how much he had changed. He had come to Red Mesa as a man running from his past, seeking only freedom from debt. But in the process, he had found purpose, belonging, and someone worth protecting. "You've changed me," he said quietly. "I thought I was alone out here, but I'm not anymore." Leora smiled, a small, genuine smile. "Neither am I. You've been more than a hired man, Jace. You've been a partner, a friend, and maybe more." He reached for her hand, and she took it. The bond between them was no longer just a contract. It was trust, respect, and care built through shared danger and triumph. Over the next days, they repaired the farm, tending to the wounded animals and fixing fences. The attack had left scars, but it had also strengthened the community. Farmhands, once fearful, were now confident, trained, and loyal. The land, though battered, remained theirs. Jace stood at the edge of the plains one evening, looking out over Red Mesa. The wind stirred, carrying the scent of dust, dry grass, and distant alien flora. He felt a strange sense of peace. The debt that had brought him here no longer mattered. He had earned something far greater, a home, purpose, and a life worth living. Leora joined him, her hand brushing his. "The land is safe, our home is safe, and so are we," he nodded. "Thanks to you and thanks to all of us." The twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving a sky of stars and quiet. Jace felt hope for the first time in years. He had escaped debts, yes, but he had also found freedom, courage, and a bond that could not be measured in credits or contracts. Red Mesa was more than a farm. It was a symbol of resilience, bravery, and the spirit of those willing to fight for what mattered. And Jace, once a man running from the past, now stood ready for whatever came next, beside the woman who had become more than just a widow or a contract. She was his partner, and together they would protect the legacy of Red Mesa. The night was calm, and for the first time in a long time, Jace felt truly alive.